Is it on?
You see that light? That means the camera's on. This is my third trip to the States. I'm a correspondent for the World Globe, and I noticed the hotel I'm staying at had an abundance of stewardesses. Knock on the door now. I had the idea I might like to do some research on the unusual lifestyles of these women. Sort of documentary film.
Just relax. Pretend I'm not in the meeting.
We've all heard the lurid tales of these stewardesses, but nothing would prepare me for what I was about to see. Oh my god, hold it there. Did I catch you at a bad time?
This is the only time I feel comfortable.
I see.
So
Thank
what can you tell me about Wives of the Skies?
Sure. Wives of the Skies is it's a short, and it takes place in 1965, and it's about a gentleman named Derek, who's a British photojournalist who finds himself at a stewardess hotel. And this was during like I said, 1965, which was during the sexy skies era of the airline industry.
Yeah, the Pan Am kind of era, right?
Yes, and because they've had different incarnations in their industry in terms of stewardesses. So it's during this period he meets these beautiful stewardesses, two of them, and tells them he wants to do a documentary on them. So they invite him up to his room, and when he gets there, he finds like some kid in the lobby to do the camera work. When he gets there, what he sees is not at all what he expects. He's actually kind of stunned, blown away, and he comes back another time, and again the same thing. It's like they are these two really beautiful girls that are good girls, sort of drawn bad. Like you're going to expect the worst, but it's nothing like that at all. And it's actually a love story. At the end, he ends up with one of them. And it's a really beautiful little film. And I really wish you'd have seen it because it's hard to explain.
I get where you're coming from. And it also sounds like it came with a number of challenges, too, since usually short films are on such a constrained, like for time and budget. But to also get the costuming and the sets and everything, how did you bring that all together?
Well, yeah, it was really interesting doing a period piece for in a low budget, and what I found out it was done. We were able to do it perfectly. I guess 1965. Wow, that was a long time ago. Gosh, the way the world is set up right now, Goodwill. I was able to find incredible wardrobe. I designed the costumes. I had somebody make them. I had my leading man. His name is Drew Brandon Jones. What an actor. He absolutely had the wardrobe like down. So we got very lucky with his wardrobe. In terms of production design, we were very lucky. I just happened to, my husband happened to have like a transistor radio like from 1965 that looks brand new. Everything we used was vintage and looked new. So it looked like the day. We shot it. It looked like we put it in CinemaScope and then Wild, which adds to the feel of the 60s. And while the photojournalist was filming, we of course shot the whole thing on a Canon 5D camera and video, but we made it look like Super 16 and colored it properly so it looked like the real old, movies from the 60s for the footage that we used for the documentary part. The hardest part, which I thought was going to be, but turned out to be the easiest, was it's going to be hard to explain without seeing the movie, but one of the things this movie features is the Japanese artist Kinbaku. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so these women, this is kind of this little kink that he walks in the room and he sees them. This is what it's really well done. It's really funny. It's really tastefully done. And it's absolutely beautiful. But my fear was, first of all, I didn't know what it was. I just knew what I wrote. And I had to go to the internet and look up beautiful rope tying.
Mm-hmm.
And it came up kinbaku, which is the literal translation is the beauty of tight binding. I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yep.
These girls have to look beautiful, not like they're hogtied. So thankfully for the internet, I went to Meetup and I typed in, hi, my name is Honey, and I need somebody, and I found a kinbaku group, and I let them know that I was making this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a response immediately. Like by 3 different people, and
They are
probably 'cause
very
my name
eager. I know
There
from
you go.
firsthand
Nice.
experience from my wife is very heavily into it. So yeah, I'm very used to that.
Oh, get out of here! Well, then she's going to really like this movie. I was sure that I was going to be like, well, I'm sure because my name was Honey made part of it easy, but that they answered so quickly. So your wife, if she likes this kind of, the beauty of kinbaku, she would definitely love the film. And now you really need to see it. And so, but I thought it was going to be very difficult to put that into action, but I got a gentleman who was a master. His name is Master K,
Mhm.
and he's famous out here. And he came on board, and we were able to shoot it. It was pretty amazing. He was great. And also he had us rehearse, in his dojo, so we could figure out the design and the color of the rope and how it should look under light and all that kind of stuff. And also to make sure that the 2 actresses were comfortable doing it, because contrary to what I thought I can just rig it up and have them jump in there. But
Nope.
it doesn't work like that.
Nope.
You have to, because they were completely enveloped, in a chair, for example. So they had to be down with doing it and being that way for many hours. It was pretty amazing.
How did you cast these women for that? 'Cause did you tell them up front that you were going to have this
Oh my God.
this bondage part as part of the casting process?
Oh, well, it wasn't part of the casting. Yes. I mean, good point. Yeah. They, right away when they read the script, I said, are you claustrophobic? No. Now, there's no nudity in this. It's fully over their clothes. Are you claustrophobic? Is this something that interests you? And they were both, everybody was interested in doing this. I wouldn't have done it, but these 2 girls were definitely into it. I knew both of them from working together with them separately and from on other projects. And I'm also an actor, so I've worked with them. And certainly one of the girls, I've seen her do some crazy stuff. So I was like, hey, she can do this. This is nothing. But really, I was nervous because of the length of time. And also, the ropes had to be a certain tension in order to hold the design.
Yep.
So it was like, oh, this is really going to happen. And it worked out. They were both incredible and very, very comfortable doing it. I was the one who was most anxious about the whole thing. But
You said
and we did it right.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, we did a test. So we knew what the design was. We knew it was coming. But to be able to sit there for hours like that, that's some crazy stuff, and be filmed, and do their part. And it was quite a feat, I must say. I was so impressed with them.
At least you didn't do any suspension work. I think that
No,
might have
nothing like
tipped
that.
those scales. But yeah, I can't imagine. It had to be somewhat uncomfortable for them, especially for being fully clothed, because now you've got your costume, and then you have either nylon or fabric rope, just kind of holding everything in. You're just becoming like a little heat, a little bundle of heat right there.
Yeah.
Under studio lights, no less, too.
We use hemp rope, which I don't know if that's cooler than nylon, but we definitely use hemp.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it must have been uncomfortable. I mean, they were wearing their little dress or whatever over it, this one girl, and both of them had, but it was quite beautiful and funny as hell. I mean, one character had to hop across the room. It was pretty amazing. It was
I've
amazing.
I've seen that happen at some of the bondage clubs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because
You know much more about than I do.
Well, if you're doing a scene and you have you did a lot of elaborate rope work, and that person just wants to get down and get a drink or something, you can't undo it all if they want to be back in it. So yeah, you either carry them over to the bar or you let them hop along.
Yes. Exactly. It was pretty amazing. It really was. It was a crazy, crazy thing. I mean, I'm sure that's how these two showed their affection for each other. Mm-hmm. And if it was 1975, maybe they would have been kissing by then. I don't know. But it was 1965, and this is like, they didn't know that they loved each other.
It's a very interesting take on romance, because you don't see that too well. You don't see kink shown in a serious sense. You always see it as some kind of like laughing point, or it goes the other way and just goes full hardcore. You know, you never see that. It's just intimacy between people. Like, it's a common interest. And it's great to see that shown. I'm really looking forward to seeing this.
I'm looking forward to having you see it, because to talk to somebody who understands what this is, that's amazing. That's wonderful. Most people don't.
You should see about having it shown at like FetCons throughout the U.S. and see what people's reactions are.
Well, I thank you so much. I appreciate that, because that would be a fun way to present it. Absolutely. FetCon, and I'm sure there's other ones like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like I think next month in Chicago there's Eroticon and some other ones. We don't get them that much down south for some reason. Like, people are still kind of really repressed here, so the things you would see in LA you hardly ever see here.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's so true.
The costuming for the stewardesses, when you were doing the design, did you like single out a specific airline of that era to base it on, or did you kind of make a conglomeration of like many of the different styles that were going on at that time?
It really, people might look at it and falsely go, "Oh, Pan Am," but there's a similarity in it, but it's completely different than the Pan Am. So it is like a kind of if I were a fashion designer back in those days, this is how I would have done it. As you know, the airline outfits back then were done by designers like Pucci, and Yves Saint Laurent, and Mary Wells. And so I approached it like I was trying to make it high fashion, at the same time practical. And so I did take a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Color-wise, I had changed the colors up as soon as I found the location, which had a lot of lavender in it, so it was going to be too clashy. So a lot of the girls' outfits got changed in terms of color, not design, but in terms of color, once I got the location. For example, one of the stewardesses is in like a Susie Wong dress, sort of, and it was a beautiful blue. And then we got there, and this wall was like incredible deep blue. I needed to throw yellow in there, things like that. So I really worked with the colors once I got the set. But the design itself, it was sort of, there's no exact sort of rip-off. It's kind of a combination of a few different things that look still in the style of the 60s.
Did they have any headwear at all? Did you give them those small pointy caps? Oh, you did?
Oh, no, I gave them a big cap, which is almost on the cusp of the 70s. It's a big, almost like British kind of short rim, big, tall kind of bubble hat.
Oh,
and
nice.
And we refer a lot to the outfits, because a lot of the inspiration, I could say, for some of the inspiration for this one was the outfits, and the fact that they were, and it was factual stuff, like the fabrics were made so they can bend a certain way, and they have to wear garters and corsets underneath, and they had to, their hats was breathable because they were constantly changing altitudes. I mean, things like that were factual things about the actual uniforms that were worn back then. That was sort of interesting.
Do you think you'll revisit this kind of this fetish genre for future movies, like go like with different fetishes, or do you think this is kind of like your one and done for this?
Well, the real fetish here for me wasn't the bondage at all. It was the fact that when what prompted this whole movie was the idea of these stewardess outfits that were so highly bid on and bought and sold and traded by men in this era, these vintage 60s outfits on eBay. And I thought, what the hell is this? And I mean, this is the fetish. Who are these men buying these outfits up and paying such a high price, collecting them? And that's where the fetish idea came from.
I didn't even know there was a market for that. I didn't know that stewardess outfits were in high demand by certain men. That's interesting.
Only vintage in the 60s. Only those, and they're all really tiny because they had to be small. There are regulations about height and weight. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, no, that's where the fetish was. The roping just came as some kind of, I guess, response to that. And so it was pretty funny. I was like, oh, what is this, some kind of crazy fetish with these outfits? And they are. Yeah, pretty crazy. And, yeah, you'll have to look up on eBay vintage stewardess outfits. And this was several years ago when I first found them like that.
I might actually just, if I find a real nice one, I might buy it just to frame it, just to have that piece of nostalgia.
Yeah, they're beautiful, actually. And they are designer, you know. Mm-hmm. They have this one incredible outfit that I must say was from, gosh, I'm not sure I'm remembering this exactly which airlines it was. Oh, it was Braniff. They had a striptease. They called it the striptease outfits because as they would go up in altitude, the stewardesses would start to take off their jacket and then the little other thing, and they would strip down to a tiny outfit.
It's weird that even though it's objectification in a way, it's still a work of art in its own. That whole airline stewardess kick to get more people to travel on the airlines. So I guess it's kind of a trade-off. You got to take the bad with the great.
Well, that's it. I mean, that was the whole point. Sex sells, and of course, you know the story of Coffee, Tea, or Me. That whole book. Mm-hmm. Which are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I am.
And are you familiar with the fact that the stewardesses didn't write it, that it was a hoax by the airlines written by a man?
I did not.
Yeah, I didn't know.
It makes sense, but yeah, I was completely unaware of that. Huh.
Yeah, he actually became a great big, kind of a famous episodic television writer, and it came out, I think, in the 90s that he actually wrote it. It was just a blitz, media blitz by the airline industry to sell more tickets. I didn't know this when I wrote the movie. I was like, oh, Coffee, Tea, or Me. My mom had that book, and I was like, oh, yeah, this and that. But it seemed so kind of unauthentic to me. I'm like, this is bullshit. And then it turned out it was. I looked it up like right before we started shooting just for fun. I'm like, holy crap, this is perfect. Oh, I know why I looked it up, because somebody had said so-and-so died. It was like in his obituary that he wrote the book. And I'm like, wait, what? And so.
Didn't come out to the very end.
I think it came out like maybe in the 90s, but I was unaware. I certainly. Yeah, is that a funny story? Typical.
My last question, which is going to be the most important question, is where and when will people be able to see your film?
Yes. Well, I have several upcoming dates in festival, and because of, and I would, I could send you something with the list.
Oh, that would be very helpful. Yes, please.
Okay. Yes. Now, because of obviously what's going on in the world, some things did get canceled. Mm-hmm. So we just have to see what happens in April, and hopefully they'll continue. And I'm constantly getting asked in different festivals, eventually, maybe sooner than I would have liked because of the environment of what's going on in the world. I will be putting it up online and people will be able to get it there. It's just not there yet because while it's in festival, it doesn't have that. You can't put it online.
Right,
The
I understand.
festival,
Yeah,
Well, you know how that works.
yeah.
So,
Otherwise, no one's going to
yeah.
want to go to the festival.
Exactly. So here we are in March, and we started festivaling in January, and we won 25 awards now, which is amazing.
Wow.
And so I just hope it gets its run. I really hope it gets its run. But obviously, it's going to not get its full run because, like I said, things have been canceled. But it will be online, and at that point, I'll also let you know
Okay.
when that will be.